Hi, welcome back. I'm Mike Vincent, and this is the Shipper Update with Anthony Smith, our lead economist. Hey, I love that economy lately, dude.
Thank you.
It is awesome.
I mean, the best production team in the game, I have to say.
No doubt.
Yeah, they
No
work
doubt.
magic. Even when I think, this is going to be a dry episode, they somehow turning it around.
They do a great job. So what do we got going on, my friend?
For sure. So we have the Philly Fed Index. We always talk about some of these macro indices. We're looking at the ISM PMI, the industrial production. So we're going to get a little bit more pinpoint, a little bit more regional. So shippers out there, specifically within the Philadelphia metropolitan area or that region, this might be applicable to you. So
is this a mid-Atlantic? Does this go into the mid-Atlantic? Should we grab that Baltimore and stuff like that into there?
Yeah.
And so we're assuming that as well. Okay.
Exactly, yeah. Looking at that general area. And when we're looking at this, it's going to be indicative, of course, Zach hates these survey data, but they're meaningful. And so when we're looking at it, we have a few different breakouts. And what we saw in the current conditions for the Philly Fed Index was that it still remained elevated, but there was a slight dip down in the most recent month. And so it's not, again, nothing too concerning, but it is interesting because, again, this is broken out into different components. And we see that the new orders component went down 10 points, down to 22.2. So that's an interesting aspect because it's one of the things I've been considering a lot lately is the increased prices. So prices increase pretty substantially.
So some of those limiters might be starting to take their toll.
Exactly. So we're seeing this within the Philadelphia area. We're seeing increase in shipments still going out, but those new orders did come down while prices remained elevated.
Well, this is the current general activity, right?
Right.
So new orders are new orders coming in, so that would indicate future shipments.
Exactly.
Right. This is new orders versus current shipments, so they can be up while that is. So let me quantify. What is 31.5?
Definitely. So this is a little bit different.
Why is it 31.5? Is that good still?
It's
less
good.
Great or what?
Yeah, it's good. So it's not quite like the ISM PMI where it's 50, but with this one, it's going to be above 0. So that 31.5 is indeed good news. And so something
new orders 22 is
new orders 22 still good news.
Okay.
But that downward movement of 10 points. Yeah. And so it's something to keep a close eye on, especially within that region.
First tick. If there's a second tick, you start to believe there might be a trend there, right? Is that what we're talking
third
about?
tick, I'm like, all right, this is a thing.
Yeah.
This is a thing. And so when we're looking at this, you just mentioned it not too long ago, future components. And so in the next chart, we have the future components as well.
Beautiful.
And what we saw there was that it's still indeed elevated, and it actually increased a little bit. So we just saw it go from above that 39-point mark. And so we're seeing some slight movement with increased activity.
So would this mean that the people in the know are not paying attention too much to the dip in new orders and still pretty bullish on the future?
They're still bullish on it. They're still bullish on it. So that's something, again, Zach hates it, but confidence is there for the market. One of the other big areas where we have to be cognizant of, like I just mentioned in the first shipper segment update, of course, is employment opportunities. That's one of the areas that people were constantly talking about as having an issue with, or is just kind of finding those adequate employees within the market to fill these factories up.
Yeah, that's going to be tough, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Let me ask you one other thing about this, though. Do these areas, so you got Philly, you got Empire State, you got, Dallas as well, and Atlanta.
Right.
Do they generally go in the same direction with each other, or do they ever just go completely in disparate ways?
There's definitely some times where they go in disparate ways and can have some diverting trends throughout the country. So that's why it's important to look at the overall trend. That's when we kind of peel back and look at the ISM PMI, look at real tangible results like the industrial production index. Those are going to be like the big macro overview.
But all this boils up into those. So you can, so this is the parts, and that's the sum of the parts.
Exactly, because all the times we'll be talking about, this is what we're seeing in the ISM, but then maybe I'll get a comment or a question like, really? Well, I'm not seeing that. We're not seeing that here in my market. And then that's when some of these could be a little bit more applicable when we're seeing what these previews might be for some of these markets and some of these areas. But the Philly Fed one, definitely a meaningful one, like you mentioned the Empire State Index, but for shippers, it seems like the sentiment there is that new orders are coming down just slightly, but still elevated, just slowing down in the rate of growth. Shipments are up. We're seeing that prices are remaining elevated, but the expectation for future business activity still high. So good news all around.
Right on.
Essentially.
Yeah. What are you waiting on next? What's the next big data you're looking for?
I am going to be looking forward to, I know we just had our housing starts. I will be looking for the new home purchasing sentiment index just to kind of see where those
Or just send him in again. I'm sure Zach's on the edge of his seat waiting for that
I
as
know,
well.
he's going to be angry.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Always informative.